In this session, we're going to be working with Tablepress, which is a way to easily create tables for a WordPress web page. There are a couple of ways to work with Tablepress and with tables in general. One is for the presentation of tabular data. So say if you're wanting to show an Excel spreadsheet, you can easily import that data onto a Tablepress table and put it onto a web page. You can also use tables for page layout. So if you're setting up, say, a grid of photos or a grid of photos and captions or content of any kind in a table format, you can use Tablepress for that as well. There is an important caveat here. Tablepress doesn't always work well with mobile devices, say phones. This is particularly true if you're using it for page layout. So whenever you create a table in Tablepress, make sure and if not check it on a phone, at least lower the size of your browser so that it resembles a mobile phone so you can see what the layout will look like. In general, tabular data makes out better on mobile devices than using Tablepress for page layout. And with that all said, let's jump into Tablepress. So here's our first example. This is Tablepress used for page formatting, where we have a header title, we have two pictures, and we have captions for those pictures. In this case, simply the names of the speakers all set out as a table. Now, this is a fine way to format a page. The issue comes in when you're looking at it through a mobile device. So I'm going to change the size of my browser screen to a different height and width, and we'll see that this table does not turn out very well. It cuts off the picture of Greg Graff, and there's no scroll bar to take you left to right here. So not a great solution for formatting a page in terms of page layout. Here we have tabular data, meaning data that has been imported from an Excel spreadsheet, imported into Tablepress and used in a WordPress page. This fares much better than the first example we looked at of page formatting, primarily because we don't have photos in any one of these cells, but rather have text that can wrap around. Another cool feature, the end user can sort by any value in any one of these columns. Let's look at this in a mobile phone-like resolution, and we can see that our data, our content, wraps around very nicely and doesn't cause much breakage of the formatting of the page. I'll show you next how to build both these kinds of tables. We'll go to Tablepress and we will choose Add a New Table and build a table for formatting a page. I've given the table a name, Tablepress example, page layout. I'm not going to bother with the description. The number of rows will be 3, and the number of columns will be 2. I'll click Add Table, and this will bring up the majority of my table options. Here are our rows and columns laid out, so we're going to use these to insert content into our table. If you remember from our first example, our first row was a single row that had our header, our second row had 2 photos on it, and our third row had 2 captions. So let's build that first. First thing I need to do is to combine these top 2 cells so I can turn them into my heading for the table. I have combined cells over here and in a row, which is what we want to do. So I'm going to click inside this row. I'm going to choose in a row. This is going to tell me that I can't do things like sorting, search, or pagination if I am combining cells. I'm okay with that. So I'll click OK, and I'll click OK again. And there is my call span code to let the table know, essentially, that these two have been spanned, these two have been combined. I'm then going to add my content over here in the other cell, and I'll simply type in guest speakers. I can add simple HTML to a table cell, so I can make this an H2 header, meaning heading 2, meaning it'll be larger than the simple paragraph text. So now we have our first row done. Our next task is to add images to the second row. I'll click inside this first cell, I'll click Insert Image, and then I'll click inside that cell again. That takes me to the media library. I'll choose this picture of John Hickenlooper. I have my choice of sizes here. I will stick with medium and insert that into the table. It will take a few seconds for that HTML to load, but there it is. I'll then click into the next cell, insert image, click into the cell again. It takes me back to the media library. This time I'll choose Greg Graph, and again I'll use the medium 300 by 200 pixel size, and I'll insert that into the table. And after a few seconds, I get my HTML for that cell. We're down in our last row now. Here is the text for my captions, my third row, John Hickenlooper and Greg Graph. I can add some simple HTML to this if I like. In this case, I've merely added a bold tag, the B, and then the / and the B to open and close that bold tag. I'll click Save Changes, and in the upper right-hand corner, I have my short code, table ID = 15, so I'll copy this and put it on my page. And here's our page. It's blank right now. I don't need to go into text view. I can stay in visual view. And I simply Control and V to paste in that table short code, and I'm good to go. I'll update, and then I'll click the URL right here, and we can see our results. And here they are.